Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another terrific Tuesday here at the Veteran Lang YouTube channel where we talk about VA disability. Hey, as always, I'm your friendly VA accredited attorney, Matthew Lang. Before I get into today's topic, veterans, aka VA employees, and everybody watching, I want to remind you that this is a platform designed for education. As I may not be able to advise here, I look forward to providing as much education as I can about VA disability, with the ultimate goal of making the process between veterans, VA, and everybody in between so smooth that perhaps you don't even need me in the future. But to do so, I just want to remind everybody that we're all here to learn from each other. So if there's any topics that you would like me to share my knowledge or experiences from, please throw them in the comments and I'll do my best to get those videos created and out there on the platform. But if there's even something that you want to share with other veterans here on the platform, educational-wise, that you think may be helpful, something you've researched, something you can back up with supporting documentation, I would recommend throwing that in the comments as well for others to read and learn from. But just please be careful. When you do comment, please be careful with your personal information and your private information. We don't want that to be out there for the wrong hands to get a hold of. All right, let's get down to it. We are going to talk about traumatic brain injury, TBI. What I want to do today is an overview or a walkthrough of specific criteria the VA uses to evaluate and rate TBI. So veterans, for you, I'm hoping this is very informative, and it could even lay a little bit of foundation for some other topics we'll talk about as we discuss in the future further specific disability diagnoses and their way VA rates them. And for VA, I hope this is a good overview for you and to remind you on how to handle a TBI claim. So let's start with the basics. What is TBI? Well, a TBI occurs when there's an external force, such as an IED blast, a training accident, or a fall, that disrupts the normal functioning of the brain. So for a VA disability claim, veterans, you don't need to have a loss of consciousness to have TBI. The VA also considers things like an altered mental state, confusion or memory loss immediately following the traumatic event or the event that created traumatic brain injury. So the VA typically classifies TBIs in three categories, which are often connected to the initial severity of the injury. We have mild TBI, moderate TBI, and you've guessed it, severe TBI. Mild TBI, I would say that's the most common form of TBI, and the most common one that we see back here as we help veterans out with their VA claims. Many times a mild TBI is referred to as a concussion. The symptoms might resolve quickly, but the long-term effects can be significant. Moderate TBI, well, that involves a longer period of unconsciousness or confusion. While your severe TBI is the most serious classification. This often involves an extended coma or severe amnesia. So the key takeaway of veterans is that TBI can be the signature wound. Even if you didn't seek treatment at the time in service, the VA will recognize that these injuries can be complex and their effects may be immediately apparent. Well, let's talk about the three pillars of a VA claim for TBI. What you're going to find here is the basic foundation that we've spoke about in VA disability law before. The same three pillars in the foundation. First one being, well, a current diagnosis. So veterans, At some point, the evidence has got to show you have a current diagnosis of TBI, whether that be through a VA examination, VA treatment records, private treatment records. But remember, it's also got to be from a qualified doctor as well. Now, what's our second pillar in this case? As we've talked again before on that foundation of service connection, well, it's a in-service event. So veterans, you must identify the specific event during your service that caused the TBI. This could be, again, the IED blast. It could be a vehicle accident. It could be a sports injury or a fall. It's crucial to provide as much detail as possible, including where and when it happened. Remember, we want to help the VA out. We want to make this easy. All they have in front of them is the pieces of paper. So give them a little bit of the story. Paint the picture. If you can remember the event. Now remember, TBI may cause some memory loss. So VA, please remember, don't hold it against the veteran if they don't remember. It could be part of their condition. What was that third element? Well, we've talked about that before as well. That third pillar or third element of service connection is that medical nexus. So this is the most challenging usually, but it's the most important as well. A nexus is the medical link that connects veterans, your in-service event, to your current diagnosis. Again, as we spoke before in other videos. Now, this medical link could come from a VA examination or maybe an independent medical provider. But ultimately, it has to come from, again, that qualified physician or that qualified medical expert. So let's talk about now how the VA rates TBI and the importance of the residuals. Well, unlike other disabilities, the VA doesn't give a single rating to TBI. And now let me back up. When I say unlike many other disabilities, understand veterans, there are several other disabilities out there that we will talk about in the future that could also provide more than a single rating. But the main thing to understand here is that it is possible to receive more than a single rating for TBI. Let's look at it this way. VA is going to evaluate the lasting symptoms, known as residuals, across 10 different categories of dysfunction, also known as faucets. The highest rating you receive in any one of these 10 categories, veterans overall, is going to be your TBI disability rating. But now keep in mind, as we talk about this, you veterans, you may also receive separate evaluations on top of this single evaluation, just depending on the facts, the residuals, and the laws that apply. So what are those 10 categories? Well, we've kind of already mentioned some of them. Memory, attention, and executive functioning would be number 1. Number 2 would be judgment. Number 3 is a social interaction. Number 4, orientation. And then we have motor activity, followed by visual spatial orientation, then neurobehavioral effects, communication, and consciousness, and finally, a category for other subjective symptoms. Now, that is a lot to remember, but understand that when you look at the CFR Part 4, Veterans and VA, you will find these 10 categories listed in the rating schedule. You're also going to find that the ratings for each category are on a scale of 0 to 4. Now this translates to a disability percentage, each one of those numbers from 0 to 4. A 0 scores, well, 0%. A 1 is 10%, while a 2 is 20%, a 3 is 70%, and a 4 is a total 100% disability. So veterans, the VA is going to schedule that VA examination or that C&P exam to assess your symptoms. It's vital that you're honest and thorough during the exam. Now, I've mentioned that before, I believe in another video, is that I've always mentioned that when you attend an exam, just be honest, be yourself, and let the examiner understand your symptoms to the best of their ability. Always remember, veterans, from an educational standpoint, to describe your symptoms, even the ones that you might think are not important, because they may be for the examiner. Now, as I mentioned before, TBI can often lead to other conditions known as secondary service-connected disabilities. So this can include like migraines, depression, anxiety, seizures. The VA has a list of certain conditions that they are presumed to be connected if they develop within a certain time frame after a moderate or severe TBI. But proving these secondary conditions can significantly increase your overall disability rating, veterans. Now, this is just a short list and not an all-inclusive list. So remember, there are plenty of other conditions out there as well that could be secondary. And this is ultimately how you could get more than one evaluation, in a sense, for your TBI, as some of those conditions could be separated out from the different categories while providing you with a significant percentage underneath one of the other categories for your TBI by itself. It may sound confusing, and I understand if it does. So we'll work in the future to make even more sense of it. But for today, just understand that it is possible to have multiple evaluations ultimately for conditions that could be deemed secondary to your TBI veteran. So as I look at my notes here and we finish this video off, I want you to know that a TBI is more than just a medical condition. Well, it's a legal one when it comes to your VA benefits, veterans. Securing the proper rating requires a clear understanding of the VA's process and the evidence needed to support your claim. Understand, even the VA has struggled with how to handle TBI claims in the past. And just to share one moment in time of the experience I lived, I'll let you know, veterans, that the VA even attempted to make specialized, as they called it, lanes or teams just to handle TBI claims, because they can be that complex. So, if you are denied for TBI, veterans, you're struggling with the TBI, and you just don't feel like you're getting anywhere with your claim, remember, there is help out there. Whether, again, that be myself, veteranlang.com, schedule a free case evaluation, we can talk, see if there's anything we can do. And if it's not myself, you do have VSOs, veteran service officers, who are accredited with the VA, who can provide additional assistance to you in helping with those claims. You have other accredited attorneys, other VA accredited agents as well. Just remember, there's always help out there if you're struggling with your claim. But the biggest thing you want to try to remember is when you do any claim, including TBI, is gather all your evidence, medical records, write your statements, get your lay statements, your buddy statements, any documentation that shows the event in service. Make sure the VA has it. Paint them the picture. Let them understand and help them understand what has occurred and what your condition is about. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that this helped give that little walkthrough and that overview as to TBI and the sense of how it's rated. Now, I know I didn't go into a great detail with the CFR, but I'll look forward another day when I do that. Because like I said, it can be very complex, to the point that even VA has in the past tried specialized teams to handle such claims. But we'll understand it, and we'll get there with it. But today we set that foundation for what TBI is and give you an idea, veterans, of the multiple categories that your TBI can be evaluated by, and the fact that some of those categories could cause secondary conditions to appear to lead to separate evaluations from your TBI. With that, I thank everybody again for their support, for watching another great educational video here as I try not to stumble and I stay as clear as I can with my notes in front of me. I do thank you, as always, and I look forward to seeing you again next Tuesday, where we talk more VA disability. Have a wonderful week.